Hello, this is your teacher again, and today our topic is Australia. As you can see from the title, I pointed out its geographical nature and that it is a country, a continent, and an island, so three in one. The thing is, when you start talking about Australia, it is probably one of the most exciting countries of the English speaking world, as having English as their mother tongue. And I can tell you that I can talk about Australia quite a lot, and if these were some normal times, I would spend probably 2 lessons talking about it. And I also had in mind of bringing someone from Australian Embassy to come and visit us, but unfortunately you just have to deal with me, and this will be quite a long presentation, so you can, if you want, you can stop after some time and finish it listening some other time after a few minutes or so when you get tired of listening to me. Now, first, something about the flag. Why does it have the Union Jack on its flag? Well, because actually their ruler politically is still Queen Elizabeth II, and they're still part of the British Empire, although the Queen doesn't have actually any influence in their politics. They also have the Prime Minister, who is actually the governing head, and they don't have the president as we do in a republic. Dakle, još uvijek je kraljica, tako je glavna, samo na papiru, ne donosi nikakve odluke, to donosi australski parlament i premijera, australska vlada, ali eto tako, ona još uvijek po ustavu, oni su još uvijek dio britanske monarhije. Now, your task is to find out what do these stars mean and why are they there, why are they white, and why aren't they the same size? The Aboriginal people. As you know, the Aborigines were one of the first people who came to Australia. They say that they came some 40 to 50, some say to 60,000 years ago, and probably they came from Asia when they were still some sort of very close Australian Asia, but there are no actually some evidence about it. They are the natives of Australia, and they suffered a lot after the white people came. In what way? First, they were they didn't know how to treat the white people, and there were wars among them. As you can see, the Aboriginal people, the Aborigines, they didn't have any weapons, and soon the white people, when they came, they thought, okay, this is our land, we will just take them. But the Aborigines, they were nomads, dakle bili su nomadi, nisu imali nigdje nekakvo svoje settlement, naselje. They were going around Australia for food. There were many different tribes, but when the whites came, they just claimed the land their own. So the Aborigines, they just couldn't get on with that. They didn't know the meaning of possession. Oni nisu uopće poznavali to da postoji nekakva taj notion posjedovanja, and they couldn't understand the white people, so there were often fights between them. A lot of Aboriginal people died, and what happened at the beginning of the 20th century is something very, very awful, that it was a sort of exodus, and the white people, the British usually, they were giving the Aboriginal people help in food and so on, but this food was actually infected by different viruses that killed the Aboriginal people. So very hypocritical of the whites. And not only that, those little children who were halflings, dakle djeca koja su bila mješovite krvi, So probably usually their mothers were the Aboriginal women and their fathers were white and they were illegitimate. They would be taken away from their mothers, and they were taught by missionaries to lose all of their Aboriginal traits. Dakle, što se dešavalo u prvoj polovici 20. stoljeća pa sve do 1973. Dakle, možemo reći da je to u stvari bilo više od polovice stoljeća. Djeca koja su bila, dakle, miješana, majke su češće bile aboriđinke, a očevi bijelci, naravno bile su nezakonita djeca, koji očevi bijelci nisu htjeli priznati. Ta djeca su bila oduzimana majkama i slala kod misionara, koji bi ih onda učili da zaborave svoje domorodačko podrijetlo i učili bi ih da se ponašaju isključivo bijelački, želeći time zatrti sav njihovo sjećanje i na aboriđene i na taj način uništiti aboriđinsku kulturu i aboriđene uopće. These children were called the stolen generation, ukradena generacija. And only in 2007 or 8, the prime minister, he apologized for that in the name of all the white people that were doing that. Dakle, tek 2008. se australski premijer ispričao u ime bijelačkog naroda za sve to što su radili aboriđenima. So, a very sad history of the Aboriginal people after the white man came. This is probably one of the most famous sites of Australia, and this is Uluru, or Ayers Rock, the saint rock of the Aboriginal people. Of course, Australia has diverse landscape, ima raznoliki okoliš, but the most famous one is this, the outback. What is the outback in Australia? Actually, this is the part in the middle of Australia, in the inside of Australia, which is mostly desert. I put this picture here, not knowing that yesterday was the movie, so on Saturday was a movie called Australia, starring Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman. You can see them here. And if you can, please watch it, because this tells you something about what I was talking about, the Aboriginal children, and about the people who came and to see what Australia was really like at the beginning, before the World War II, at the beginning of the 20th century. Of course, when you see this picture, when you see this bridge, when you see this building, you immediately know that this is Sydney. Again, diverse landscape, some Maori dancing, very, very unusual animals, and a lot of highways and roads with these warnings. So, no fuel for 500 kilometers. Usually when you go down our roads and our motorways, you can see that the next gas station is probably within 20 or 50, maybe 100 kilometers, but this is rarely. But for 500 kilometers, it's really a long way, so you have to always have your tank full and probably a canister with fuel, because you might get stuck in the middle of nothing. The lady is throwing what? A boomerang, one of the most famous weapon of the Aboriginal people. And of course, these are the kangaroos, which spread around Australia without any. They are actually now protected species, and the Australians have a lot of Australian farmers have a lot of trouble with them, because they eat their harvest and they can't do a thing about them. again, one of the funny signs that you can see only in Australia. So in the next 92 kilometers, what can you see? You can see fires, you can see wombats, and you can see kangaroos. Aborigines again, and their dance, they usually perform it when someone comes. And this is the Aboriginal flag, representing what? The black part represents the black of the people, the color of the people. The red one represents the land. Australian land is usually red, and the yellow represents the sun, of course. Now, here are some facts that I would like you to write down. Capital is Canberra, which you probably know. It's not the biggest city or the largest city. It's, of course, Sydney, Melbourne following. Language, of course, English. Currency, Australian dollar. Population, around 25 million people live in Australia. Main religion, then usually Protestant. Government is democracy. And area, if you can read this and you can transfer these square miles into kilometers, then you will get the area if you want this information. Now, Australia is divided into states and territories. There are 6 states: New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria, Western Australia, and 2 major mainland territories, Northern and Australian Capital Territory. Now, as you can see, here is the division. Tasmania being the island that belongs to Australia, named after his founder, Abel Tasman. And you can see here I put this funny map and here are some strange animals that can be found only in Australia. Now, something about history. As you can see, and as you know, James Cook, he claims to be the one who discovered Australia. Of course, you can't discover something that already exists, but he wasn't actually the first European who came there. It were the Portuguese, but since the coast of Australia is very, very rough, and because of Great Barrier Reef, that you can't just go by ship all the way to the mainland, it's very unapproachable. This is why they didn't find anything interesting there, and probably they came at a time when there was a big drought in Australia. Dakle, velika je suša bila. Oni imaju one razdoblja suše I kiše, so it probably looked very hostile to them. But actually, we know that the Dutch were there, and they actually named Australia, one part of Australia that they came to. They didn't actually explore much. They came to there in the 1640s and gave it the name New Holland. But the first European settlement of Australia was in Botany Bay, when in January Captain Phillips came with his fleet there, and they actually organized this settlement, naselje, in Botany Bay, and later it became Sydney. As you know, originally Australia was established as a convict colony, meaning what? In the beginning of the 19th century, there was a lot of crime in England. There weren't enough prisons, but there was a lot of crime because people were actually sentenced for just small robberies, and you could accuse anyone of stealing something, and people were immediately sent to prisons. And they were also hanged for stealing, so they usually would give a convict, a person who was convicted of a crime, a choice. Either you will hang or you can go to this new land, Australia. Well, this was at the beginning, but not many people, not many convicts came. So not all the people who came to Australia were convicts. And early in the 1830s, the number of free settlers increases. So free people, normal people who just wanted to find their new lives in Australia, they started to increase and to come there in search for a new and better life. So as we know, as I told you, the Aboriginal people were the first who were there, and they said that they migrated from Asia a long time ago. The scientists are not so clear whether it was 30,000 or 60,000 years ago, but it was quite a lot of time ago. Majority of Australian people, almost 95%, is of European descent, are whites. Why? Because Australia actually until the 1970s they had this law that they didn't allow black people or Asian people to come and to live there. So you couldn't migrate to Australia if you were black. Today it's something different. 4% is of Asian descent, and mainly they are Chinese and the Filipinos, and the 2% Aboriginal people. As you know, animals are something that Australia is quite different from any other continent, and when the British first came there, I think that it was quite a surprise for them to see the animals such as kangaroos hopping around, because this was unlike anything they have ever seen before. Many of these animals, many of these mammals are marsupials. Marsupial je tobolčar. That means that they carry their young in pouches on their stomach after birth. Pouch je dakle tobolac. And these are kangaroos, koalas, wombats, wallabies, and many, many more. So this is a picture of wombat. It's a small animal. Actually, it bites. They say that it bites, and it's very hostile towards people. It's very small, by the way. Wallaby is a smaller version of kangaroo, and I think that you can see them in our Zagreb Zoo. Now, platypus. This is something of a very strange animal, because it's only one of two mammals that hatch from eggs. It's a mammal and it hatches from eggs, and it has a bill. Bill je a kljun, and webbed feet like a duck. Dakle, i onako ima one na prstima poput patke, dakle ima stopala. At first, when it came to England, people thought that this bill was sewn to its face, that it was a rat with the bill sewn. Dakle, misli se da je to nekakav štakor i da je taj u biti kljun uzet od nekakve patke i da je samo našiven. But when it bit them, they actually soon found out that it was quite dangerous because it can be poisonous. So this is the platypus. Of course, many animals are poisonous and you can die from them in Australia. Now, Great Barrier Reef, what is it? It's the largest coral structure in the world. To ste vjerojatno učili. Dakle, veliki koraljni greben, najveća koraljna struktura i živuća struktura na svijetu. It includes 700 islands, 350 species of coral, has nearly 1,500 species of fish, birds, not crabs, clams, and sea turtles. This is what it looks like from the sky. Australia Day. In 1994, as you can see, all the states and territories, they agreed that they will celebrate their national holiday, Australia Day, on January the 26th. This was actually the day where when the fleet of Captain Phillips, they came to that Botany Bay, and that was now Sydney. Now, something about sports in Australia. These are the most famous and popular sports. So cricket, of course, because They are still part of the British Empire. Hockey, it is called field hockey in North America, so it's not ice hockey. It's a hockey played on grass. Netball, you will see the picture then and you will see what it is. And rugby. Now, rugby, it can be either rugby or Australian rules football. So these are two different sports. If you want, you can Google something more about them. So, hockey, a very popular sport among girls, as you can see. Australian football, very similar to rugby, but they have some differences in rules and so on. Netball, as you can see, very popular among girls. Something similar to basketball, but as you can see, their basket is actually not the same one as in our basketball. And of course, cricket, you know what it looks like. It can be played for days, months, and so on. Now, something about the most popular and the most famous city in Australia, and the largest one, Sydney, with its opera house, which was built in 1973. Actually, it was built as a model of a sailing boat, because the roofs, they look like sails of a giant ship. In the building, there is a concert hall, an opera theater, drama theater, cinema, recording hall, a reception hall, and I don't know, there are a lot of thousands of people can go there and watch anything at the same time. So these are some pictures of Sydney. Of course, Bondi Beach, one of the most famous and the longest beaches in Australia. Surfing, one of the most popular sports in Australia. Now some pictures of Melbourne, the second largest city in Australia, with its Yarra River. Downtown Melbourne. A beach, surfer's paradise again. And also there are some big cities such as Darwin in the north. Then in the south you have Perth, Adelaide, Canberra, of course, and so on. Now, what is this Waltzing Matilda? It is, as you can see, an unofficial Australian anthem. Dakle, to je neslužbena australska himna. It doesn't glorify Australia. Dakle, ona ne slavi Australiju. And when I first heard it, I thought that it was some man talking about a Matilda, some girl, who he wants to dance with, who he wants to waltz with. Now, actually, it's something quite the opposite. This song came and it was actually invented in the years of Great Depression, so in the 1930s, when a lot of people lost their jobs and they were forced to find some job in the outback, and they came to be called swagmen because they carried what they owned in sways or bags. Dakle, sway ili bag, to je nekakva vreća i tu su nosili sve što imaju. Now, what about Waltzing Matilda? Apart from carrying everything in this way, they also carried their sleeping bag. Dakle, vreću za spavanje, koja naravno da nije bila vreća za spavanje kao danas, nego je bio nekakav mali smotuljak koji je izgledao kao mali madrac koji su rasprostrli na zemlji i mogli spavati na njemu. Često su nosili i billy or a pail, odnosno mali kotao, koji su usred, eto, kada bi sjeli negdje u prirodi, zapalili vatru i nešto pojeli iz njega. A o čemu se radi u pjesmi? So it is a story about this swagman who came to a billabong. Billabong is a pond ili malo jezerce, u biti jedna bara. i čeka u biti da zakipi taj njegov kotlić. U međuvremenu naiđe do njega džambak ili šip ili ovca koju on onda uhvati i želi nositi dalje. U biti želi prodati tu ovcu i na neki način prehraniti se. The music is very nice, glazba je jako lijepa i htjela bih da ju poslušate i dugo godina je bila neslužbena australska himna. And these are the words, the lyrics, so if you want you can listen to it, and I gave you some of the links to listen. You can sing to it, and I would really like you to remember that Waltzing Matilda is something that you connect Australia with. Now, I hope I wasn't so tiresome. There are so many things I would like to say about Australia, which is one of the countries I'd really like to visit, and that maybe I gave you some more information than you already know about the country. Thank you for your attention. Bye.